Hello everyone, welcome back to Believer Science Academy, Bengaluru. This is topic of the day discussion session. In today's topic, we will be discussing a very important topic, that is UNFCCC process and the need for reforms. Okay, recently there has been a call for reforms in United Nations framework on combating climate change, which is a framework aims to combating climate change. It is an organization as well as an institution, so there are certain issues, challenges and criticisms. Also there are proposals to bring certain changes. We will see why there is criticism and what is UNFCCC, and also will address how to improve the process of UNFCCC. Okay, so why in news? Amid credibility concerns, the UNFCCC process is facing criticism for inadequate climate justice. See the words, these are very important words which you can quote in your answers: climate justice, finance shortfalls, and inefficiency in negotiations. The 2025 Bonn Climate Meet and the Brazil's proactive role ahead of the COP30 in Belém 2025 aims to address these systematic flaws. Okay, two important points from the prelims perspective. 2025 Bonn Climate Meet was there, and the next COP, that is Conference of the Parties to UNFCCC, is going to be held in Belém, which is in Brazil. Okay, next. So this is the UNFCCC logo. So about UNFCCC, the full form is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It was signed at the 1992 Rio Earth Summit, came into force in 1994. There are 198 party member countries. Objective is to prevent dangerous anthropogenic interference with the climate system. In order to prevent anthropogenic interferences, that is human-made interferences to the climate change, we need to take action now, be it mitigation or adaptation. That is what UNFCCC tries to address. Decision body is the Conference of Parties, which is held annually, and the Secretariat is based in Bonn, Germany. Before you go further, we need to understand a bit about Rio Earth Summit of 1992. In 1992, there was Earth Summit at Rio. Okay, so there were majorly three concerns which needed to be addressed. First concern was related to climate change. And the second concern was related to desertification. That is extreme form of land degradation. And the third one was related to issues with respect to biodiversity. Okay, so in order to address these issues, there were three frameworks or three conventions which were signed. The first of which was the UNFCCC, that is United Nations Framework on Combating Climate Change. And the second one for fighting the desertification was UNCCD, that is United Nations Convention on Combating Desertification. And to address biodiversity, there was UNCBD, that is United Nations Convention on Biodiversity. Under these frameworks, where there have been various programs which have been undertaken to preserve climate, to preserve desertification, not to preserve desertification, to avoid desertification, and to safeguard biodiversity. You might have learned more about this. Just have given a brief framework on these three. Okay, these are also famously called as Rio or Rio Trios. Okay, Rio Trios, because these were the conventions which were outcomes of Rio Earth Summit of 1992. Okay, now back to the topic. So what are the credibility crises? What went wrong that there are questions about the credibility of such an organization or such a framework? First is failure to deliver climate justice. Developed countries have fallen short on emissions reductions and 100 billion per year climate finance, which was promised in 2015 Paris Agreement. Okay, in 2015 Paris Agreement, the developed countries agreed or promised that they will be providing 100 billion per year for fighting or adapting or mitigating the climate change, which they have failed to do so. And vulnerable nations now feel marginalized in the decision makings. Okay, what they feel is the developed countries or the rich countries have already taken the benefit of industrialization, etc., and are now imposing restrictions on other countries. Okay, for a country which is already developed can go for green energy, because though the green energy is capital intensive, their economy is so developed that they can adopt the green energy without so much of repercussions. But it is not the case with a developing country or underdeveloped countries. There, the transition from the diesel or the transition from the fossil fuel to the green energy is going to be difficult, because green energy, though it is novel or noble in nature, it is very capital intensive. You require lots of capital for those kind of like transition, which is not possible from marginalized or vulnerable countries. So they wanted support from the developed countries, which was agreed as per Paris Climate Agreement, and which they have failed to do so. Now the developing countries feel like they have been marginalized in decision making. Okay, then US withdrawal. USA has been the chief beneficiary of the industrial revolution, and he has been the chief contributor to the climate change. Okay, they have contributed so much to the climate change, and they are the largest emitter of the greenhouse gases, etc. Now they are escaping their responsibility. Their president Donald Trump thinks that climate change is a hoax and not a reality. He thinks that climate change is a myth and not a reality. So such a developed country, such a responsible country that has to take responsibility of its actions, is now escaping their responsibility. So this is an escapist attitude or the protectionist attitude of USA. It undermined global trust in climate leadership. It highlighted the voluntary and non-binding nature of commitments. Okay, so you need voluntary and non-binding nature of commitments, because even if the commitments are binding, the rich countries or the developed countries are not going to adhere to it. Okay, then, and there is also increasing corporate influence and greenwashing. That is, in COP28 in UAE and COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan, drew backlash due to oil-linked hosts. Okay, now imagine the irony here. What is climate change fighting against? Climate change is mainly fighting against global warming. And who is the chief contributor of global warming? It is the fossil fuel. And who is the chief contributor of fossil fuel? Are the Arab countries, or the Middle Eastern countries, or oil-rich countries. Okay, Arab, especially Saudi Arabia, UAE, Azerbaijan, etc. And now the irony is that these are the countries that are hosting conference of parties to the United Nations climate change. So it goes against the principle, the very principle on which UNFCCC was brought upon. Okay, so this has resulted in breach of trust from the underdeveloped countries. Okay, then lobbying by fossil fuel giants is seen as undermining the climate change. And also there has been increasing greenwashing. What is greenwashing? It is a term where the capitalists or the companies argue that or use their products or show their products to be done with the green energy or green technology. Okay, for example, there is a case with respect to Volkswagen. What it happened was, Volkswagen, what it is they produce a particular car. Okay, and they claim that the car is almost carbon neutral, in the sense it is not releasing any carbon, because the engine they are using and the catalytic converter they are using is very advanced, and it is resulting in zero green emissions or greenhouse gas emissions. However, and they showcase that our car is environmental friendly in order to boost their profit, in order to boost their sales. So this way of showcasing their product to be green friendly or environmental friendly is called as greenwashing. And upon discovery, it was found that it was not really carbon neutral. It was not really, there was no zero emissions. It was releasing certain greenhouse gases, and they had only claimed this for just monetary benefits. This is being used by many of the big corporates. What they are doing is they are launching a product and claiming that it is it is environmental friendly, it is carbon free, so that more people are able to buy this. So that is called as greenwashing. Okay, a term to be remember. Next, so what have been the recent developments in the UNFCCC? So first is Bonn climate meeting, which happened in June 2025, which is a pre-COP30 negotiation platform. Focus was on restoring the trust, refining agendas and financial mechanisms. And Brazil's leadership ahead of the COP30. The Brazil released 30-point reform ideas. Aim is to make climate regime more efficient, inclusive and fair. So, what are the key proposals that have been put forward for reforming UNFCCC? The first is streamlining the negotiations. That is, we have to streamline the negotiations to avoid redundant agenda items. Shorten the negotiation duration. Cap delegation sizes to reduce rich country dominance. Okay, so delegations, there should be cap on the number of people that can attend the meeting. There should be cap on the number of people, so that there is equal representation given to all the countries. Then restricting host eligibility, that is, bar countries with poor climate track records, for example oil economic countries. Then reduce legitimacy crisis in hosting climate summits. Okay, and then mainstreaming the UNFCCC. Link climate talks with other UN bodies and WTO, IMF and World Bank. There should be synergy between all the important organizations, because even the World Bank, IMF, WTO, they are also doing certain issues or certain programs, not issues, they are also doing certain programs related to climate change. If they are all doing in silos, then it is not going to result in a proper outcome. So they should come together, bring synergy, and so that the performance can be improved. Then use parallel mechanisms like loss and damage fund, voluntary carbon markets, etc., etc. Then developing nations demand is for climate finance. What is the crisis? In the Paris Climate Agreement, it promised 100 billion per year by 2020. Still, it has not been met. Actual need is 1.3 trillion per year. Okay, actual need is 1.3 trillion per year. However, you are not able to even match 100 billion per year. And the latest pledge in the recent Baku summit was they agreed for 300 billion per year from 2035, which is far short compared to 1.3 trillion. I don't think even this is going to be matched, because if they are not able to match 100 billion per year, how are they going to bring 300 billion per year? Okay. Then developing countries like BRICS demand is to immediate and scaled up finance. Predictable, accessible and non-debt creating flows are needed. Decision on new collective quantitative goals or quantified goals on the finance at COP30. Okay, what is the new collective quantified goal? That is certain goals which are declared by the countries with respect to reducing the greenhouse gas emissions, increasing the green technology, or increasing the green energy, etc., etc. Okay, those are certain goals which each country admits for them. India has Panchamitra. There are 5 quantified goals which India has agreed to, such as reducing the greenhouse gas emission to 45% and increasing the non-fossil fuel contribution to energy by 50%, and also increasing the forest cover from 35% to 35% of the total land area, etc., etc. These are certain goals of the government of India. Similarly, every country has their own quantified goals. So, civil society's role. What should be the role of civil society here? That is, push for transparency in negotiations, exclusion of fossil fuel lobbyists, reforms to COP formats to ensure accountability. So the civil society such as NGOs and citizens, they should also play active role here. They shouldn't be just passive participants. Instead, they should play active role. So in conclusion, reforming UNFCCC is urgent but unlikely without consensus. So there should be consensus brought upon. However, initiatives like Brazil's reform drive and civil society presence can reinforce climate justice, improve decision making legitimacy, and ensure action oriented global governance. Okay, so important topic, important fodder material for mains answer as well, and also certain prelims matter as well. So now I have to cover the topic in a holistic way. So if you like the video, then please hit the like button, comment on it, and also share with your friends. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel and also click on the bell icon so that you don't miss any notification. With this, I will end the video. Jai Hind.